but a lot more rich. Anyways, look at love in this time of love, this season of love. We're gonna look at some of these vocabs, some of this vocal. Starting with Venus, Aphrodite. Look at the golden goddess. And Venus, Stichopegia, the shape, the arc, the body of the earth. And this ring of fire, the significance of this ring of fire. And this situation in the middle of the ring of fire where the sun died and rose again. The same mark. So you understand the mark. Tau, the mark of death, the kiss of death. Look at this. You gotta understand culturally, and you know what I'm saying, we look at the mythology, just everyday lust, especially as men, you know what I'm saying. When you look at lusting, hearing sirens and men on ships and shipwrecks, and the lustfulness of love, of desire, based upon hearing or any form of senses, right? So when you look at this in the sense, when you look at the Yamaja, the water deities, the Orishas, the mermaids, the sirens, we understand this time of love, understand love and war are very intertwined. You know what I'm saying? A ruler's love for his subjects. You know what I'm saying? As a king, you love those that you are over. With that being said, we have to understand these holidays and these things in reference to the earth. You look at the significance of the North Star, the Pole Star, especially for navigators, sea navigators, and the sirens, and how, in general, how sin begot. When you look at the beginning or the first sin in the garden, we understand the Garden of Eden. When we look at Eden, Eden is pleasure at the Nile. And when you look at the mother culture of the Americas, which they call the Adena culture, the Eden culture, you have to understand Mu, the 13th, the pyramid mounds, the primordial mounds, the beginnings, and the beginnings of creation. And these sound waves of creation, these sonic booms, these things that we see causing today from the voice, from the speaking of sound, you know what I'm saying, when we look at energy and the vocal cords and the music and the symmetry and the different measures of harmonics, the spiral, the Fibonacci sequences, the nautilus, all of these signs, all of these sequences, sounds and vibrations, wind patterns, all of these things can be related back to the muses. Why is this important? When you look at the muses, when you look at art, and at any university, when you look at artifacts, and artifacts, art that is fact, evidence of agricultural, archaeological significance is art. So art is science. Art is evidence of understanding of knowledge of things concrete and things abstract. So when you look at the art in the body and the framing of the woman and certain curves of the earth and how these certain sayings, body of a goddess, and all of these different terminologies, we understand the lust and how the woman has been used throughout many cultures. And that's why you see in some cultures they go completely covering the woman up from head to toe, not allowing any of her body, ankles, anything, curvature to be exposed. All of this has a purpose we shall dive into when we look at Venus, the goddess of love, love and war. bloodshed, and the need for soldiers, the need to develop warriors. In the biblical text, a man who had just begot a wife could not go out to war for a whole year, for he must be with his wife. We understand the significance of that, and war and capturing lands, conquering lands, you want soldiers, you want warriors that don't have a wife. Because when you have your warriors conquer a land, the prize or the reward for these young warriors is going to be wine and women. So all of these have an effect on when you look at the overall holiday, and what people celebrate as Valentine's Day, from the Valentine's Day cards. When you look at this from the military aspect, and you look at it as when one would die in battle, die in war, his woman back home would receive a letter letting her know that her loved one, her husband, whoever he was to her, you know what I'm saying, her Lord, has gone. It's gone. Her receiving that letter was an indication to other men that she would now be single. Now, some women would not remarry. Some women would not want to be with another man, even in the passing, in the death of their husband. They would weep or lament, but there was supposed to be a period of time for this lamenting. You have to understand, all of this comes from this original situation which takes place in the garden. And from this situation in the garden, from the women's ability to see the beauty of the fruit, she consumed it. And when you look at this consumption of the fruit in Eden, in the garden, in this particular region, you see the consequence being there being two cherubim to protect the Garden of Eden. So when you look at these different significance and these different mythologies and the lands and associations, when you talk about the Naga serpent, when you understand the connection with serpents, seraphims, cherubims, angels, messengers, voice, oracles, when you see these different things and the different monuments that have been left here in Asia, Angkor Wat, Cambodia, around the 90 degrees east line, in that area of when the sun is at its high noon, at its peak in that area. So the ley lines, all the way to the Austral region, to the southern Pacific, that are experiencing their summer in the southern tropic. This particular time is the winter. These navigations, when you understand why one would leave the Americas during the particular time of this winter to be in this mission to bring about this expedition into these different lands. So when you look at the military tablets of Narmer, who is an Asiatic, who's one of the first Asiatics to follow these different star systems and navigate to come in and set up a world empire. When we look at that in a woman, in the serpent, in a representation of this original mother culture and civilizations and the knowledge of civilization, trades, and different things that would structure superpowers throughout history, talking about worldwide empires, universal empires. So when we look at this and this mythology of what took place with this the woman, the garden, I understand when you look at the garden and the guardian and Cupid and the mythology of Venus and her son Eros. When you look at Eros and you look at Eros era and an era of light, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a demis, not a pure light, you know what I'm saying? So when you look at Eros because Oris, Eris, and Aries, and the premature light before the full springing forth. When you look at these different things and measures of twilights and these Twa, sometimes called the Twa people, Twi, and their measure and stature is all in relation with the mythology, is how they're naming in particular words as being pygmies. When you look at Stichopegia and these short statute people in the representation of the measure of 120 degrees of the fatty tissue of the buttocks, which is the arc of the covering of the Earth's body from the ring of fire of this volcanic arc. So when you understand these things geometrically and how these things, and why they had different zoos and different things and what they was doing to the woman in these zoos, how they was measuring, comparing her body mathematically to the circumference of the Earth's body. Oh, so anyways,
this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the demonization of the divine feminine. When you look at the Yam, this Canaanite deity, the meaning of the sea, you look at Yemaya and all the Orisha, the water deities, the protector of the waters, of the shipwreck. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about the demonization of the divine feminine.
So, Venus, Aphrodite, and these water deities, when you look at Adonis, the tribe of Dan, Eden, here we have, you know what I'm saying, we're talking about beauty, pleasure, and delight. These things in Hebrew, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Bring that shit out. Where is that? So understand ecstasy and climax and the home, Eden, when we talk about intercourse or entering at the climax of that in the Garden of Eden. Understand the woman and her flower. Understand ecstasy and climax. You look at the Khoikhoi people and you see the Stichopegia, the rump. Understand that Eden, the Garden of Paradise, when you look at Adon, is dealing with the voluptuous, right, of the paradise, the woman, the vagina. At the Khoikhoi people, when you see this stick talking about the voluptuous, understand the curves, talking about the curve and the wholeness of the basin and the understanding of the woman. So the fat of the land was in reference not only just to the land, but to the woman, right, and her build, and her voluptuousness. So understand Eden. So when you look at these things, the fort and the night sky, right? The night, the fort, and invaders of the fort, 49ers, the booty, the spoil, capture the flag, capture the woman, you know what I'm saying, the trophy. When you look at the Amazon and a lot of the protection of the young maidens on different islands, young maidens would be isolated on islands in like a virgin's colony, if you will, in some of these times, and they were protected by eunuchs or what you would call some of these short stature, whatever. Anyways, well, so this is how it's funny how when the Greeks and the Romans, when they came and they started to invade a lot of these territories, you know, and create their civilizations, you know what I'm saying, when you look at St. Patrick's Day, the leprechaun and Lupercalia, and this ring of fire, and these Naga, these Negritos, and these short statue people, these protectors, these guardians of these ancient islands that were once this great landmass, some say. So a lot of information and data is hidden under the Pacific Ocean, and a lot of discovery is not done to recover a lot of the evidence that I believe is still hidden in the Pacific Ocean.
Right there.
So
yeah, look at that.
You could even see here in 2011 from this tsunami that took place.
Damn, look at that.
When you look at this vast Pacific Ocean, this ring of fire,
all the way, I felt that one.
When you look at Tokyo and the underwater pyramids. and the voice to speaking.
They did all of that.
You look at how powerful the presence, the energy is of the Most High.
Goddamn.
And,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
for real.
So when you look at this Pacific Ring of Fire, these areas, you know what I'm saying, we can still find so-called underwater pyramids, all kind of shit. What's this? So we look at Valentine's Day, which is derived from the Roman god, the desire of affection, Cupid, and his ancient, Greek counterparts. Eros and Aphrodite are called by their Latin names Cupid and Venus. And Cupid is depicted as a young adult rather than a child. So we understand a young adult or a small size, short stature, full adult at the size of a child. And when you look at the culture of pedophilia and how the attraction, when you understand like the different world wars, the militaries, how they treated some of the islanders throughout the world wars, and man, some disgusting type shit when you really look into some of the shit that has taken place. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about modern day, probably even 2000. When you look at Thailand and the industry to this day dealing with that whole lust and this whole season, this whole time of the Aquarius, for some reason, is one of the most lustful times of the year for some reason. You know what I'm saying? With Valentine's Day coming and all of these things, when you look at these things from a creational standpoint, this is the primordial beginnings, and this is how we explain the chronology of time, which the Greeks and the Romans made chronos instead of including these spiritualities within the scholarship, separating them as religious texts and not combining these things to understand their true power and significance, is what has disconnected us, has given us knowledge but lack of spirit. And some of us have spirit and lack of scholarship, but finding that balance, you know what I'm saying, is great. You know what I'm saying? The spirit will teach you, guide you into learning knowledge, which, you know what I'm saying, these things have a observatory significance that we can see within this atmosphere, this being and creation. And these things have been used to be demonized to prevent us from the abundance that we can fertilize within this earth, and truly take away this need of, you know what I'm saying, power of supply and demand with capitalism, and provide an abundance to all. You know what I'm saying? This is what was been done. You feel me? But anyways, when we look at love and war, and the culture of the female goddesses, they're usually war goddesses, and protection, guardians. So when you look at this, it's dealing with the waters. When we look at this particular time, the storms, and when we look at the storms and the waters, the earthquakes, the shaking, you know what I'm saying, the things that happen within the earth, within this realm, everything that has a material form, these spiritual alchemists have abilities. This is why witch hunts and different things was done to those that were spiritual alchemists, that knew how to take charge over the elements within the earth for whatever necessity may be. And so when we look at the different elements and alchemy and the disconnection from the spirit and learning with knowledge and the separation of these things to where is shit at? It's cold as fuck in this motherfucker. Here we go. So you look at the different elements, the periodic table, right? And all of this different makeup. I'm talking about
right now.
this particular time of the waters.
Okay, so this
And just in January.
it tells you right here.
This year, just in January, you can see all this activity.
So you can see all of this action
that's taking place here in this specific Ring of Fire. And this is only, you know what I'm saying, the last
like looking here,
17 days.
Southern Austral region.
Look how lit. Look how lit.
How active this specific realm has been since.
Oh, this is the throwback one. Hold on.
You know, I'm talking about 2004.
But anyway, I'm
How many years ago? That's 16 years ago.
Look, there was a
Right there.
so
That was what, 2000,
this is over a period of time from
2004 right
2000. Let me show you the one I'm talking about. Let me show this one. That shit crazy, right? So we look at this specific Ring of Fire and the crossing of this and death into life, the mouth of death and the waters and the luring shipwrecks into certain waters to crash and to be left to be eaten by different whales and different things. This is where the Tanin, the devourers, and Amit, and the scales of justice, and my
some of the portions of the
and a lot of this mythology. When you look at the Hall of Judgment and the Yami,
the light blue
and
color,
the El Nahar,
different
and
depths.
Adon, Eden, the Garden of Eden, and the tribe of Dan. So when you look at the tribe of Dan and Eden in paradise, which once the consumption of sin took place, became death. You know what I'm saying? So this is how the birth of the sun, the Bashemesh, Bashemesh, the house of the sun, the great basin where
9.1
where the sun, you know what I'm saying, was born. And this is why this action, this activity in this Pacific Ring of Fire, this volcanic region,
What
is
was
so
that right? Oh, that was another big
lit.
one.
You feel me?
2012.
You know what I'm saying? Active, always.
2012 was active.
You know what I'm saying? So we went through the different years.
The whole diameter of it.
We're talking about historical.
So the shock is always
So you
kind of
even look at
in a sense,
chakras and your base chakra and the cycling of these earthquakes. It's like a vocal amp. You look at an amplifier type, you know what I'm saying, type of. What's this one? And this is right here. This is in South. This is in 2000. Look at this. 2011. And these waves, we talking about some of these waves is so high, but look how far spread out. Think about the ecosystems of the different fish.
What year was this?
And the different things that, and how this is affect their, you know what I'm saying? They migrate and move at certain times for a reason. So this is why us going to the store, eating your food, doing this, you know what I'm saying? If you're not fishing every day, you're not out there, you're not like experiencing what's happening, tapped in, you're not tapped in because you at the grocery store, you're not, you know what I'm saying? You're not looking at, you're not understanding what's happening in the earth. So the movement of all this shit is important. You feel me? So
this is a 9.5.
So you know what I'm saying, the Bacabs and you know what I'm saying, the Maya Yucatan, when you look at the Great Basin in this Pacific Rim, this, you know what I'm saying, Shakamu, this basin, this bowl, right? When you look at the bowl, you know what I'm saying, this super bowl, this super place, this super coffin, a coffin, a caporet, or when you look at this tent of 144 degrees of night, when you look at this covering of this darkness. Talking about. Look at the serpents, the guardians, and when you look at the guardians, the serpents, we were talking earlier, and Aphrodite. Look at how these shockwaves. You're talking about it's like a voice. It's like something was spoken that shook. You know what I'm saying? And you can see the ripple. It's amazing. You know what I'm saying? When you look at sound and the way sound waves and how this whole Valentine's Day, when you look at Eros, the earth, afar. When you look at afar and Aphrodite and Ish, sometimes referred as Ishtar. When you look at Ish, fire. You know what I'm saying? My fire and desire. You know what I'm saying? That one that get you aroused, eros. You know what I'm saying? When you look at shooting your shot in the DM, you know what I'm talking about, Cupid's arrow type shit. You know what I mean? Sending your message, sending your shot in these different mythologies, and how we even to this day, like, you know what I'm saying, speak these things, you know what I'm saying, in our commonality. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, it's cold as fuck, boy. So it says the Romans with their associated with the Romans with their Venus. Yeah, so Aphrodite, Venus, the Venus figurine. Look at Stick-a-Piggy, the pygmies, the short statues, dwarfs. And we was talking about Eden, Adam, and Adonis, and Adon, the adder, and the phoenix, the flying serpent, and mastering that balance to cross over from death into life, to elevate to that 13, you know what I'm saying, out that 12, you know what I'm saying, out to hit that 13, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, nigga, what? Niggas just pygmies. And when we look at Cupid and Cupid's arrow and the cubic and the measure, all of these things could just be ironic as fuck. It could just be ironic that, you know what I'm saying, these Negritos, these pygmies, these short statues, twat, are just this size genetically for no reason, or that certain, you know what I'm saying, melanated can pass this as dominant, can pass this recessive gene or trait through their DNA and still hold the content of melanin or whatever. A lot of these things are fascinating in these different areas to see isolated islands of a variety of genes and genetics and colors of tones of melanin. So when you understand the virgins, the maidens, and like the Amazons, and the protection of a lot of these women, and the culture of Valentine's Day, and the conquering of the land, and the Amazonian warriors, all that type of shit, you gotta understand that the culture around these different times and the protection of young women was something now special. Even when you look in the scriptures, it talk about, we were talking about earlier, about the conquering of the land. You could take all the young women that's never had a man or been married. So these things are important to your soldiers and to your morale of your military. You know what I'm saying? These things are things that get them riled up. So when you get that, to get them to get that booty, to get the other nations go, whoever land you trying to conquer. That's how you gotta ride, right? You feel me? If you're going to war, you gotta go to war. You know what I'm talking about? Shit, you know what I'm saying? So lust and desire, when you look at this in the mythology of the mermaids and the luring through the sound, through the voice and the music and the instruments and different things in the waves, tsunamis to cause shipwreck. You have to understand why they demonized the culture. You know what I'm saying? Why the culture had to be demonized, because it gave you power over the elements. It gave you power to manipulate, to become a spiritual alchemist. You know what I'm saying? And so, when you look at eroticism and all of these different things now through sexual liberation, now people can love however they feel they want to love. They can be pleased however they want to be pleased. And they free. It's no order. It's no life. So the universal order of creation, you know what I'm saying, set the order, set the law, set the functionality for man's purpose with woman, and not with child and animals and other sorts of things, you feel me, that developed in cultures that did not cultivate and had a fear or had a hatred for cultivation and developed predatory habits, eating, sucking people's blood, eating raw flesh, bloody flesh, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I'm saying, not cooking food because you don't know, they don't, you know what I'm saying? This is talking about cultivation. So people that dwelt in certain regions cultivated a culture. And when you look at the use of the woman and the exchange of the woman and the use of pleasure, eating, and the connection with the shape of the woman, especially in these particular areas. We're talking about the Andaman Islands, and we're talking about Stigopigia. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about romanticism. When you look at the Romans, romantic, and this time of love, Aphrodite and the god of love, Venus, and love, romance, the Romans, Latin lovers, you know what I'm saying, Amor, Spaniards. You gotta understand one of the most biggest navigators that was trying to spread and conquer over different lands that was originally circumnavigated by the ancients. You know what I'm saying? Priests, kings, khans, that was going by serpents that they demonized. But they still mixed in some of the culture. So when you look at being aroused, eros, and erections, in the etymology of a lot of these different things associated with love, you feel me? Niggas gotta understand what the fuck they be doing, given they, you know what I'm saying? Shit, it's cold as shit. What's this? When we look at Aphrodite and Venus and the pole star and the center of the earth, and even when you look at strippers, right, and they slide down the pole, the primordial the pole star, you know what I'm saying, the Venus people or the short statured people, and the Zeus and shit Aphrodite, crazy how it should be. And the significance of this particular time of coming into the time of Aquarius, the waters, Lupercalia. So yeah, Lupercalia, Remus and Romulus. And, you know what I'm saying, we're talking about the bitch, a she-wolf, a bitch, right? We're talking about military conquering and the code. The code when you conquer a land is kill any woman that's been touched by a man and children. But any woman that, you know what I'm saying, that hasn't been touched by a man, you can keep for yourself as a, you know what I'm saying, as a booty, as a spoil. I tell you that in the scriptures, right? So when you look at this is a code. This is why Abraham, you know what I'm saying, said that Sarah was his sister and not his wife, because, you know, he'd have got murdered and took his wife because of code of ethics. You know what I'm saying? How should it go? You know what I'm saying? If I want your woman, I'm going to kill you and take your woman. Like, try to do some shit like David did type of shit. Anyways, I forgot. We're talking about love, right? We're talking about love and this bullshit, right? We're talking about romanticism and just the waters, understand the water's sperm and this hypersexuality and how the Super Bowl and hypersexuality, and, you know what I'm saying, and how they trying to hyperize. This is the, you know what I'm saying, mating time, you know, mating season for the birds, everything. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at the birth of Valentine, Palatine, which is Rome, and we're talking about a lot of our ancient information is hidden, with a lot of the truth is hidden in safes and vaults underneath, you know what I'm saying, the ground type shit, like, you know what I'm saying, see, you know what I mean, in the, like, with all of our gold, all of our precious stone, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of our things are hidden and kept secret in some of their castles and some of their homes, and they look at these different things, you know what I'm saying, and relish, you know what I'm saying, on these different things. But when you look at Valentine, Palatine, and PAL versus VAL, and the connection with Rome, Romanticism, you know what I'm saying, maybe this shit might make some sense. So when you look at coveting and lust and Cupid, to covet, to lust after, you know what I'm saying, to come for. So when you look at Stigopegia, the Cupid, and the pygmy, the dwarf, the short stature, and the Cupid, and the connection with this time of love in the bedroom, the cubicle. You know what I'm saying? When you look at these things, you know what I'm saying, to the bedroom. That's what this is trying to get you right now. Right, every nigga trying to get somebody in the bedroom right now. From now until March, until, you know what I'm saying, All-Star weekend. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is, because this is what, for some reason, niggas follow like clockwork. But when we look at the pygmies and the short stature and Stigopegia and the Negritos in this particular region of the Ring of Fire, and Naga being the guardian, and the gardens of Eden, Don, you know what I'm saying, ancient Lemuria, Mu, the sunken area. So we look at Yami and the guardians, the Dan, El Nahar, the judges.
The water deities, the protector of the waters, of the shipwreck. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the demonization of the divine feminine. When you look at the Yam, the Canaanite deity, the meaning of the sea, you look at Yemaya and all the Orisha, the water deities, the protector of the waters, of the shipwreck. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the demonization.
All right, nigga, we get it. Nigga, damn.